Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to your instant reaction pod, where we are going to chat a little about everything. Of course, right away, Juve Lazio finishing in a pretty exhilarating draw, albeit disappointing, with a 96th minute equalizer. But lots to chat about. We've got the mercato, all things transfer market, the madness behind Lotito. And I'm your host, Sean McIntosh, joined as always by my co-host, Caleb Adams, and special guest today, good friend, Vittorio Campanile, all the way from Rome, host of Lazio Lounge, the expert of all things Lazio. Vittorio, good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys. Are you ready for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, we've got that kicking off in about an hour and a half. So this was our Super Bowl, though. This was the
It
important one
was.
for us. So
It
I'm
was.
glad because look, from the U.S. perspective, that game came on at a good time here. A little bit of an appetizer. I know a lot of neutrals that were tuned into this game as they prepare to host their Super Bowl parties. And so I will say again, we'll go into this, and where there's some disappointment for sure, it was at least an exciting match. Probably a good showcase for Serie A. Which we know isn't always the case, especially if you tune into some Lazio matches recently, where it could, maybe the best thing for anybody watching a Lazio match is if they need to be induced into a nap. So this one a little bit different, but let's jump in where we always do here at Lazio World. It's the starting 11. A couple interesting things to note here. Nuno Tavares, who we had seen coming off the bench. Now that the market is closed, it seems to be that Sarri is entrusting him again, this time with a spot in the starting 11. Prosgard getting the start ahead of Romagnoli, who is now with this Lazio side. We'd see him featured a little bit later, but of course pairing Prosgard with Gila, Provedel in his usual spot, Marusic on the right side. Your midfield now, Taylor, Cataldi, Basic seems to be what Sarri is going forward with, unless we ever get a healthy and ready Rovella. Pedro again in that starting left side while Zaccagni's out hurt. Maldini manning the middle with Isaacson to his right. This game, I didn't even get a chance to breathe before Juve right away with a big chance, forcing Provedel to make a save. And Lazio, the first, 40 minutes or so, just under a barrage. I mean, you're forcing Provedel to make save after save after save. And then in the 25th minute, Gila taking out Juan Cabal in the box. No pen given, but not even a second to start thinking and discussing that before Juve scores. Lucky for Lazio, it's deemed offside, a passive offside. The right call in my book. We can debate about the potential pen, but this one, no debate. Thuram right in front of Provedel, blocking his view. Provedel quick to point that out. And then in the 42nd minute, we see the first sign of life from Lazio. Nice sequence, Maldini to Nuno, a nice ball across, but just past Isaacson. And then out of nowhere, I said this in our text group that I'm in, we're under a barrage, and I was like, this is one of those games that just has a one chance wonder written all over it, where Lazio would find their one chance, score a goal. 47th minute, Pedro does his magic, a bit of fortune of a deflection off Bremer, but it finds the back of the net. Lazio up 1-0 going into halftime. And then minutes, there's a halftime substitution. Basic, who seemed injured, out for Dele Bashiru. And then in the 48th minute, an absolutely incredible, incisive ball, a deep ball by Cataldi to play Isaacson, who just thunder strikes this one. Isaacson, a man who can't finish anything of ease, is known for the wonder goal, and he does it here. 2-0 in shocking fashion. Lazio. And then in the 50th minute, another big Provedel save, Yildiz with a curling effort. And 55th minute, Dele Bashiru with a chance laid on a platter. Kenneth Taylor plays a great little ball to Nuno, who finds a wide open Dele Bashiru, who just muffs his first touch. A chance to go up 3-0. And of course, it's minutes later, that man, Weston McKennie, who has been on fire for Juve, finding the back of the net. Look, it's a clean free header. Gila kind of mismarking that one. And then we see the substitutions, Noslin coming on, Cancellieri coming on, and it's a nice counter in the 67th minute. Maldini lays it off to Noslin, who plays a good ball to Kenneth Taylor, who again in the box just misses wide. Another opportunity muffed. We're forced to see Romagnoli coming on for Gila, who looks hurt. Provedel again making save after save after save. And then in the 86th minute, Noslin just would come to rue this. A miss sitter after a great counter. Again, Nuno Tavares involved. Nuno to Dele Bashiru, who lays it off for Noslin. And maybe he's inspired by the Super Bowl because he kicks a field goal that goes over the net. And then, of course, we are punished in the 96th minute. 2-2, Lazio, Juve. Caleb, we'll start with you. Give me your 3 words or less to describe this match.
My 3 words would be lot with little. We did a lot today with little. And what I mean by that is we did a lot with the very little possession we had, the very few opportunities we had, and of course the gap we see between Juve and Lazio, just coaching wise and player wise. I think that despite all the odds, we were able to really perform at a higher level despite the gap, and we did a lot with little we had. Pedro, 38 years old, is the one scoring that opening goal. Profsgaard coming in, young player coming in, massive game, has huge stops, has huge interceptions. So I'm very proud of the players. Of course, it's unfortunate that we didn't get all 3 points. Did we deserve all 3 points? Definitely not. But regardless, it was good to see both the players, Sadi, really in sync in this match. I think there's a lot of belief, a lot of fight in what we were doing today, and we saw it on the pitch, and I hope it instills some belief in the team.
What about you, Vittorio?
Well, obviously, I thought Juventus played much better. They would have deserved, if it was a boxing fight, probably they would have won the fight. But, in football, this is what happened. And I saw the last games of Juventus. I mean, the last Coppa Italia game, it was pretty much the first half we saw today, right? Juventus dominating. Atalanta had one opportunity and they score. And then the second half, again, Juventus dominating. One counter-attack of Atalanta, second goal. So with Spalletti, they are very out of balance. They are very offensive-minded football team. I think they are players who shouldn't be starting for Juventus. I don't know if we wasted a huge opportunity or after all we should be happy, because my 3 words is without the bench. I mean, every single player who come from the bench today was a disaster. Dele Bashiru was very disappointing. He missed a huge opportunity. The second goal you didn't mention, but comes from a very poor tackle of Noslin. The ball comes between his legs. If he get that ball, it's finished. Cancellieri probably is the one who did something more coming from the bench. Romagnoli wasn't great. Patrick again. So you see we lack of talent, and that's the most disappointing thing. But Sarri said it yesterday in the press conference. Maybe we are not a great team, but these players fight, give all they have. Unfortunately, we don't have that much, but they give it all. And it's really disappointing because the second goal, there are so many mistakes we made, and conceding at the last second. Well, it wasn't the last second because the referee gave like another minute and a half, which was really disappointing. I couldn't believe it, to be honest. But we will regret this. win away against Juventus in the Serie A is 2017. So, it's nearly 10 years ago. It would have been time to win. It would have changed nothing, right? The table is not going to be, with 3 points, it's not going to change a lot. But, it would be a boost because you were talking about the starting 11. Let's not forget, Wednesday, there is probably the game of the season for us, right? Bologna-Lazio, Coppa Italia. If we win, we go in the semi against Atalanta, which is a game it's very achievable. From my point of view, Romagnoli didn't start because he wanted fresh for Wednesday. So, I think Sarri made this decision based on the importance of the Wednesday game. But, this team is fighting. I mean, Nuno Tavares, what a game. I mean, I didn't expect him seeing defending so well, to be honest. So that's important, right?
Yeah. My 3 words here was missed chances, costly. And like you said, look, I think before all of the market madness, I go back to the match against Parma, which we were down 2 men. We scored. I referenced this match because I remember how high I was on this team. I knew that there wasn't a ton of technical ability and we weren't going to run teams off of a pitch, but there seemed to be a cohesiveness, a fight that I really admired from this Lazio side. Caleb and I talk about it all the time. The most overrated thing that fans like to talk about is like football style, beautiful football. For me, beautiful football is football that wins. I don't care if it's 1-0, 5-2. I do not care. It could have been an ugly match today and we could have been dominated. Like you said, if it was boxing, maybe we lose. But in football, all I care about is the results. And today it was simply the quality at the end of the day. It's the individuals that were put in a position. And I know there's a lot of people, we'll get into this later on the pod, of the Sarri this, Sarri that, but it's on the players. And in those moments, particularly where there's good combinations, and that's all on the coach and the style of play. And then at the end of the day, when you're in the box and the ball is at your feet and it's you and the keeper, it is all about the individual quality. And today that let us down a little bit because it wasn't 1, 2, it was 3 chances in the box from 3 different types of players, and one who does have, or we think has, a lot of great technical ability in Kenneth Taylor, who did a lot of great things today, and we'll talk about, but still let down from his finish inside of the box. So it's disappointing, and it's one of those really weird results because I just tweeted this. If you would have told me before the match a draw, I would have been happy, content. If you would have told me after the first 45 minutes a draw, I would have said you're mad. Like, we're gonna lose 4-0.
Yeah.
But then you get to the 96th minute and you think about the chances that we missed. All this despite the fact that Juve, my God, if not for Provedel, but we still had the chances, and you have to take advantage. And unfortunately, it does feel like we let this one go a little bit. So let's talk about some of these individual players. And I'm glad you brought up Nuno. Who was your man of the match, Vittorio?
Probably Provedel. I thought he made some unbelievable save. We could talk about Isak's performance, but there's a player we didn't mention, that is Daniel Maldini. That was for me a big question mark because I don't see him as a number 9. I don't know if you guys talked about it. Today, he was a positive surprise. He had the opportunity to shot on target today, and he wasted the chance. But, the first goal is a nice ball from Maldini to Pedro. And even in the second half, he made a lot of good things. So that's impressive. But at the end of the day, Provedel made a couple of very, very good saves. So he gets the man of the match. But Nuno Tavares is definitely up there, right? The save he made at the last, the end of the second half, that was huge. And last year, he would never be there, right? He wouldn't even think about being in our penalty box. So that's encouraging. But yeah,
Yeah.
Providence has to be.
He also set up those chances that we talked about, right? Yeah. Not only like, I think there's a case that maybe he didn't mark Kalulu there on that last ball. Maybe that was his man. If it was Romagnoli's, I don't know. But regardless, even with that, I believe like Tavares could also have been the game winner in this match, right? He could have been the guy that won the game if his teammates did not let him down. So I think both his impact defensively and offensively is what you want to see from a fullback and someone that has qualities, but doesn't always put it together. So it was a very encouraging performance from Nuno.
Yeah, Providel, my man of the match. Obviously, he's the one that kept this alive for us at the end of the day. He is, I think this season, he has been probably the second best goalkeeper in the league. I have to give Mike Magnan probably playing at that top level, but Providel very close behind him. I mean, this goes back to the Serie A goalkeeper of the season type of Providel. This year, he's been really, really good, and today on full display. But I'm glad you shouted out Nuno. Obviously, this unlocks something different for us. If this is what we get from Nuno, well, all of a sudden you think about when Zaccagni returns, that left side is dynamic and it opens things up and it makes the game a little bit easier for a Zaccagni with some pressure relief of having somebody like Nuno Tavares. But brilliant match from him. Also, I gotta also give credit. I'm glad you said Maldini. I was not big on Maldini coming to Lazio. He's not a young player that you can look at and hope, oh, well, there's a future and maybe he'll unlock himself as a great player. He's kind of, he's in his prime right now. And I didn't know if the fit would be there. But 2 matches in, I really liked what I saw in the first game. Seemed a little bit rusty, like he had to get used to some things. But today, if he plays like this, again, we start to think that maybe it gives Sadi some tools to work with. I really liked a lot of what he did today. And then credit to Cataldi, who just continues to be just a soldier, does everything that you're asked of. That pass he made to Isaacson, he's always covering the most ground of anybody. And then Kenneth Taylor, a player that is playing a bit out of position, out of his, where he typically likes to play, a very attacking type of a player. But defensively today, I thought he was fantastic. Again, I wish he would have done better in the box because he's the type of player, okay, maybe the ball comes to a Dele Bashiru, he doesn't quite have that technical ability. The ball falls to Kenneth Taylor. I expect a little bit more. But I thought defensively, Kenneth Taylor was really, really strong today. He seemed to be covering a ton of ground, timely interceptions, good tracking back. I really liked what I saw from him today. So it was good because we're talking about a lot of players when it seems the past few weeks when we're discussing a man of the match, we're struggling to come up with somebody or it's only Providel. So it's good that we're actually tossing out a few names.
Well, I'll add this. I think Taylor has been sort of boxed in by a lot of Lazio fans. It's like there's only he's a defensive liability. He can't play this two-way game. He needs to be in attacking spaces. What happens in games like this? Like, how can we rely on him? I think he showed a different side to his game of like, hey, if I need to sit back, defend, track players, make blocks, make interceptions, I can do that too. I'll also say, I think it's a little unfair to lump Taylor's miss to the other misses because he had less time on the ball. He had more players around him, and it was on his weaker left foot. And he actually had a guy like the near post was covered by a Juve defender.
I mean, look, he got his shot was at least like just wide. I mean,
he was closer than the other two.
Couldn't even get a touch on the ball. He just muffed it, and Noslin is skying a field goal. So yes, different, but again, higher expectation with a Kenneth Taylor where it's still 3 chances in the box that were unfortunate. So yeah, I agree. They're different varieties of misses, but yeah.
I'll also add, I think props guard. I think what I learned from what we're talking about here is there are some players we can build around. I don't believe the idea that this is a team that is struggling for relegation. I think Sadi said that. I don't think it's a team that's struggling for relegation. I think we have the quality to be competitive. Yes, we're not a top 4 team, maybe not even top 6, but I think there is at least some promise in some of these players for the longer term project. And there's also some players that I'm like, okay, I'm done. I think we've seen enough. Let's start moving on.
Yeah. Who was your Vittorio? Who was your bidone? Who was your player that probably stood out as the worst player on the pitch today?
It's not very easy tonight, I think, because nobody played terrible, but I was expecting more from Derebashiro, to be honest with you. Last year, he started the season well. I think he has potential. It's the type of player that you can see flourish maybe in the Premier League. And you would go, oh, we sold him for pennies, and he's, impressing in Premier League. But tonight, it's not only the wasted opportunity. We saw everybody fighting. In a game where Nuno Tavares does 3 sliding tackles, you want everybody to fight. And Nuno Tavares and Derebashiro didn't. So that was really disappointing. I don't love Cancellieri, to be honest. In the last game, he looked like, I don't know, like he was convinced he was Cristiano Ronaldo. But tonight, he played well. He deserved credit. So, even Noslin is a player that I expect more. I think he can do more. So, it's between Derebashiro and Noslin probably the worst player on the pitch, even though we have to mention Gila, because he played well. But especially in the second half, he made a couple of bad mistakes, terrible mistakes. The one when he jumps, I don't remember what it was in the second half. He completely misses the ball. And if Proskas is not fast enough, that's an easy goal for Juventus. You cannot do these mistakes in Serie A. So he lets a weird player, because you see him playing and you say, hey, he's unbelievable. And then he makes a couple of stupid mistakes. It reminds me a little bit of Mauricio. Mauricio was a player that you said, well, decent, nothing special, but nothing. And then suddenly in 1 minute, Mauricio was able to give a penalty and a red card. So I don't know if Gila is already thinking about going to AC Milan or something like that, but he's not focused for 95 minutes in the game. And this is a problem for us.
Yeah, Gila was my bidone for that reason.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was actually texting with Marco Messina, who does the CBS broadcast here. And he was talking about Gila early on in the game. He's like, wow, Gila is incredible. And Caleb knows this. I think he agrees. Like, he has all the physical abilities to be world class. Mm-hmm. He's got left back pace. His dribbling ability is as good as most midfielders. When you watch a match, it's easy for him to stand out above somebody like a Romagnoli because he's aggressive. He tackles like an old school 90s center back. He's diving in for slide tackles. And you see all of this and you're like, who is this guy? He's got to be the best center back in the world. And then he makes these little mistakes or he's over aggressive. And it just today, there were those moments where you're like, my goodness, this is where Romagnoli allows him to play this way because Romagnoli is so sound, has his back covered. And as you said, Vittorio, today, if not for Profsgaard, I think Gila, what we need, and luckily we're fortunate that Romagnoli is still with the club because my concern is that when Romagnoli left, what kind of a Gila would we get? Can he step up as a leader? Can he calm his game down just a little bit? I don't know. And today, kind of maybe that answered the question. He can't. He's got to calm down because he makes these mental mistakes that doesn't matter as a center back. You can be 99% great and perfect, but it's the 1%. And if you make those mistakes in a game, that's what costs you. So Gila he's not 100% yet. So for me today, there are too many errors from him.
Yeah, I think the most egregious one was the McKennie goal. If you watch that play back, Gila, who has McKennie right in front of him, decides in the moment, let me take one step back. Keep in mind, McKennie is within 6 meters of the goal at this point. So, this is McKennie is the one person in the box you need to be marking. If there's anyone you're marking in the box, is McKennie. Gila sees McKennie, opts to take a step back, watches a cross come in, McKennie gets it for free, and we concede the first goal. I remember telling you, if Juve get back into this, it's going to come from a Gila penalty. It wasn't a penalty, but it was a mistake. And surely it was Gila that was involved in that mistake for Juve to go up a goal there. And so I think that's why you won't get a 60 or 80 million dollars for someone like Gila, because while he has all the great physical elements to him, he doesn't have the mentality and the IQ of the best center backs in the world.
I mean, the Juan Cabal one is a perfect example. Like, why is he going to ground? Why is he diving in like that? There's no reason to be putting yourself in that position. And we're fortunate. I don't know. I'd have to look at the replay again. I'm curious to hear Vittorio. I thought that was a penalty. What did you think?
I saw worse penalty be given, to be honest with you. Obviously, he already gave away the ball. So, you could say, well, the ball was another place. But, as you were saying, you didn't need to dive. And was it Mazzone that said this? That a diving defender in the box is dangerous. It's a mistake. So why? I mean, if you're not forced to do it, don't. And I don't know if he still need to have more experience, but he'll tend to make some stupid decision. And this is the problem. The other thing, guys, is I don't know what you make about Proskat, because for me today it was a huge test. And at the end of the day, I'm not 100% convinced he's the right guy. In the first half, who was it that hit it? Breme anticipate the Proskat with a header and Provedel make a great save. I mean, we bought it basically only for that. And if you don't, they cross, I don't know how many times, and he was on the pitch, and he got maybe one or two of those cross. He need to do much more than that. So I'm a little bit concerned about Proskat. I'm not saying he played terribly, but, that should be his top skill, and he struggled a little bit too much. But something I don't know if you talked about is next summer is going to be a completely new defense. Romagnoli's leaving. Hida's going to leave. Don't know what happened with Nuno Tavares. Lazzari is going to leave. So you need to buy, I don't know, 3 central defender, a couple of left back, 1 right back. So you need to change completely everything, and it's not going to be easy.
Well, I think that's a good segue to talk about the state of this club and the market we just had, and maybe what will Lazio look like. So just a brief look here. After this result, we're 24 matches into this thing. We are sitting at 8th in the table, 33 points. We are, I guess you can say you're always in it until the end, but the reality is we're not going to qualify for Europe unless a couple teams ahead of us absolutely tank, and I don't see it happening. You've got Atalanta ahead of us. Okay, maybe they're kind of hot and cold, but Como currently in 6th, the last European spot with 41 points. They've been on an absolute tear. Roma in 5th with 43 points, and then from there, again, there's just no chance. But it is a side that, at least today, we know what we have. The market is closed. We can expect and anticipate, because Sadi said he's not going anywhere this season, that I don't think you're going to see a situation like a couple years ago where he said enough is enough and he walks out. I think we know who our manager is going to be to finish this season. We know who the players are. I have to give Sadi a ton of credit for, let's say, playing Nuno. Right? Like he was in the market, and now he said, fine, Nuno's here. We saw a new reinvigorated Nuno playing defense today. So I think we have an idea of, once everybody's healthy, Zaccagni will go back to his left side. Maldini seems to be the number 9. Zaxin, at least right now, because I agree, Cancellieri has not looked good at all. But Isaacson also has those moments. But I do think as of today, he's probably going to be our starting right winger. I think our midfield is pretty locked in with Taylor and Basic and Cataldi, unless we see Rovella, right? Like, he keeps picking up tweaks. And once Romagnoli's back, you have to assume that he's back there. So Let's talk about first where we dive in. How do you just feel about that on paper, Vittorio? Like, do you think it's a decent enough side to build off of? Obviously, it's not the final product to compete for Europe, but are you at least like, how do you feel about that?
Well, as I was saying before, we need to sign a couple of important defenders this summer. That's really important. The problem, Shaw, is that what is our project? What is our plan? Because they say, yeah, we sign youngsters, but as Sari said, we don't need youngsters. We need talented youngsters. I mean, you can be 35, and Pedro showed it today again, right? Age is just a number, they say. But, I mean, talent is everything. So you have to, I'm fine in signing 90 years old players if they're good, if they're talented, but they cost you a lot of money. Maldini's playing number 9, but we bought Ratkov. Why did we sign Raktov? Is he any good? Because if Maldini is playing there and he's not a number 9, this tells you a lot about this player, right? So this is the concern I have. Taylor, it was the only sign we made this winter that pretty much everybody knew what we were getting, and he's the only one ready, starting and playing decent football. This Polish guy, I don't remember how to pronounce.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, our transfers in Kenneth Taylor, Peter Ratkov, and then Adrian Pozoborek, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the midfielder from Poland.
Who is not a midfielder. It should be a trequartista, but it's going to be played there because we don't have that many options. I mean, this guy looks interesting, but he's not ready. So I'm fine signing these players, but then you have to say, guys, this is year 0. We hope to build up from this team and go forward. But for example, if you want to build up from this team, you don't sell Guendouzi, right? So this is my concern. There are some interesting players, obviously. Maldini, at this point, I have to think he's interesting. I still believe Isaacsen can be an important player going forward. From my point of view, I would have sold Provedel and kept Mandas because he's the youngster, he's promising, etc. So this is my problem. I don't understand. If you say we're going green and then you sell the younger player, the younger goalkeeper, and keep the oldest one, then it doesn't make that much sense, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And our transfers out, for those that aren't aware, started the market with selling Tati Castellanos to West Ham, Guendouzi to Turkey, Mandas at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And then Vecino to Celta Vigo. So those obviously veteran players aside from Mandas. But again, it shows a little bit of inconsistency in project. On the project front, Caleb, tell me, because I know I've had this debate on Twitter with folks about this lack of philosophy. And, Vittorio just said it, like buying young players, that alone, that's not a philosophy. It can't. And a philosophy also has to be built in over time, and it has to be relatively consistent. So you buy young players in one market and then completely change that next market, then, is that really a philosophy, or are we just flying with the wind? Do you see a philosophy or a project here?
I mean, I do see the trend of trying to buy players that are younger, that are maybe just about to enter prime, and with the hope and anticipation of, hey, contributing for the team, improving, selling, so we can buy 2 more players of that same profile. That, I think, is the goal. But that's a strategy for investing and making money. That's not so much a strategy for on the pitch and what the goal is on there. My big question here is the alignment between Lotito, Fabiani, and the coaching staff, whoever's there. Because clearly the front office in this case, they don't care about the coach or the coach's project. Like, they're signing players that Sadi doesn't know about. Sarri is not in their mind at all about what they're planning for the team and their project. So I get a little concerned when you start signing players, you have a coach, they're not aligned on the same vision. So what's going on here? Like, I mean, clearly a new coach is going to be coming here, a new manager will be coming in here, but we were told that Baroni was going to be a 3-year project. Baroni was sacked the first season. Again, like, okay, so you say you want to be a 3-year project, but then you give the coach 1 season. Whether Baroni should have been deserved to be sacked or not, some people would debate. Regardless, if you as a club say we're committing to a 3-year project with Baroni, we're going to sign players from Verona that Baroni likes, Noslin, for example. I think you have to commit. You can't be this kind of flip-floppy side and say you have a vision and a plan. Vittorio, you're going to say something?
Yeah, well, Baroni wasn't sacked. He wanted to leave. And this is the question, why Baroni wanted to leave. And I think the problem was the winter transfer market. He asked for Casadei. You don't sign in Belayan, that it's a different type of player. And my point of view, my biggest concern is that the plan we have is buy cheap players. It's not buy youngster, because we had a couple of good ideas. Ryan that scored yesterday, Timber, that was what we're looking for. Because the other problem is you sold Guendouzi. I don't agree, but okay, you sell Guendouzi. You need to sign a player that has the same skills of Guendouzi, right? Taylor is a completely different player. I like Taylor, but you should have played Taylor with Guendouzi.
Yeah.
So basically, we needed a midfielder that scores, and we signed Taylor. But now we lose a midfielder that defends, and we didn't get anyone because the Polish player is a trequartista, so it's a copy of Taylor. So we didn't need that player. But why did we sign him? Well, it's only for 4.5 million euros. That's not the point. That's not how you grow a team. You should think, we need 3 midfielder. One should be an attacking midfielder. The second one should be a defending midfielder. The third one should be a playmaker. And so you find those type of players. Sarri asked for a striker like Raspadori. So quick, good ball skills, etc. And you sign Aktov, who is a completely different player. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter that Sarri doesn't know him. If you know what he wants, then you sign a similar player, not a completely different. This is my biggest concern.
Yeah, we never. The problem for us is that we never move forward. So even in this situation, I can look at this side and go, okay, there's some good pieces here, but zero confidence in 20 years of doing the same thing over and over. How many times when we were in Champions League and we signed Vedat Murici and and Simone needs some reinforcements and we finally have some Champions League money and a real chance. Instead of making the squad better, we do nothing. Last year, similar situation. Baroni has us overperforming. Great, nice little story that we're in Europa. We finished top of the table. Exciting. We know we're going to get to the second half of the season, and it's obvious for everybody that we know that we're gonna tire out. We're playing 3 matches a week. We do not have a strong enough substitutions. And what happens? We sign players that are cheap, young, cheap, that we never see. We never. We maybe got one appearance from Ibrahimovic, and so they don't make an impact. They don't make us better. Same thing in this market. Well, we have a chance to improve. Kenneth Taylor, great signing, maybe. Great. I love the signing, but it should never happen as a replacement to Guendouzi. We should have been moving forward. Instead, we subtract and then we add. Okay. Me and Kate, I don't love Tati Castellanos, but I do think he could have been a valuable player and a different player. What do? Instead of adding a player that complements, we take him away and we get another player that's not known for scoring goals in Serie A.
I think the biggest issue is this. If Claudio Lotito went public and said, hey guys, we need money. We are financially struggling. So we need to sell players, make money so that this summer we'll be able to do something better. Instead, what he does, no, we are financial stable. We don't need money. We're fine. We're not selling players. But then the facts prove that you're wrong, right? Lazio got like 65 million euros, and we are waiting to see if we get 20 from Mandas, and spent only 32. So those 28 million euros, why didn't you spend it? Because you needed that. So if you go public and say, guys, I'm sorry to tell you, but we need money this winter, so this is what's going to happen. Obviously, as a fan, I get upset, but at least I understand what you're doing. If you tell me the opposite and then you get 28 million euros and don't spend it, then obviously I'm nervous, I'm upset because, hey, you said we're fine. And then these 28 million euros, where are they going? Why didn't you? Don't tell me this squad is fine, because it's not. It's not. We need so many different players that, 20 million wouldn't be enough. And the pitch talks, right? I mean, we are 8th, but Roma, Como, Atalanta still need to play. So the gap could get wider. And the problem is, today we were lucky because Juventus played better. I mean, 2 years ago, we were at the same level of Roma, Juventus, blah, blah, blah. Now we are far behind. And this is the concerning thing. Como is ramping up, Bologna is investing. We are the only one not doing it. And if we don't start, we are going to be sooner or later fighting every year for the 10th place.
This is what Sean was saying on our show a lot. He likes to reiterate this, that if you're not improving, you're getting worse in football. There's no such thing as stagnating in football. You're either dropping down the table or you're going up the table, right? You're either improving or you're getting worse. And so I love what you said here, Vittorio, about just be real with us. If Lotito came out and said, we just need the money, guys, we can't afford to compete for top 4, top 6 teams, of course we'd be upset, but it would be the truth, and we'll accept that. But the problem is he's saying the stuff of, hey, we're fine financially. Oh, and our goal is to be in Champions League and compete for Champions League. But here we are again, signing a guy like Taylor and then losing Guendouzi, who complements him. We're losing some of our best assets. So I'd much rather Lotito be real with us instead of sort of trying to portray this image of everything's okay and then giving us false expectations for Champions League. Oh, we're going to compete. We have this part, we're going to compete, be top of Serie A. It's baloney right now. So
it's just the same as when he told Simone Inzaghi that he gave him a Porsche, right? And it's no different, right? It's but then when things go bad, you don't hear anything from him. So that's really the big problem, is we don't have a philosophy. We don't know really what's going on, and it's hard to have any trust and be hopeful that this is a project. If you tell me this is a project, and we've seen us go through projects before, okay, right? Every project starts and ends. It happens, and it sucks when it ends, and you start to dip, and you've got to hit the reset button. Unfortunately, it just feels like we're always hitting the reset button. And then by stroke of luck, let's be honest, we were a bit lucky when we had Ciro Immobile and Sergei Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto worked out. We were a bit lucky, but we never really took advantage of that. We never took advantage of that. We weren't that far off. Okay, maybe we qualified for Champions League for the first time in 13 years, and we didn't take advantage of it. We didn't properly inject quality into the squad. And so it's hard for me to be hopeful that, we have a nice foundation. Maybe we got a couple players that maybe we like. And this summer, we're going to add a center back. We're going to add this. We're going to add that. I just don't see it happening.
You said lucky. I know I'm going to regret saying this, but we are missing Iglitare, which is incredible to say. But Iglitare made a lot of mistakes, but made a lot of very good signing. People say nobody knew Milinkovic-Savic. He knew it, and he got it. Luis Alberto was a bench player from Liverpool, and he signed it. Fabiani has no idea of what he's getting. These players are players suggested by other agents, and we are signing them. Ibrahimovic, you mentioned it before. He's playing like in second division in Austria this year. So he's a bad player. And we got it just because it was free. So this is the problem. Belayan, we got it because he's from Verona. We only signed players from Verona, right? He didn't play a single minute with Baroni and with Sarri. Tare, I know he signed Murici, Johnny, etc., but was even very smart to sign good players. And he's doing the same with AC Milan. Yes, he's going to miss a couple of players, but he signed even a couple of very good players, and see how Milan's doing now. So this is a problem. We need a scouting team. We need a very good sport director. The example is Fiorentina is pretty much bottom of the table. What they do, they sign Paratici. Now, you can love him or not, but Paratici is probably one of the best Italian sport director at the moment. Fiorentina was last in the table and got and signed Paratici. A lot of money, but you know what you're getting. We have Fabiani, who is probably one of the worst sport director in Serie A.
But Vittorio, do you think, sorry to cut you off, do you think,
No.
because my claim is that, especially like Ilitari had more say. Like he was actually getting to be a bit of a sport, like he was getting to be the sporting director. I think Fabiani is just a name. I think he's just, it's just, I think it's all Lotito now. And I don't actually think Fabiani is, I think he's probably the assistant to Lotito. Like, or am I wrong? Do you think Fabiani is actually acting as sporting director? And
I think he has more influence than what you think he does. I think the entire change in philosophy comes strongly from is Fabiani maybe a yes man to Lotito? Probably. If Lotito says, I want this. Yeah, no problem. Sure, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I do think Fabiani also has this idea of what he wants Lazio to be and what the philosophy for signing players wants to be. That's my personal opinion on it and how I see it. Vittorio, what do you think?
Well, this is hard to say, but I think one of the biggest problems of Lazio in the last couple of years is that Lotito has been distracted by his political job. Because one thing that Lotito had was that he was controlling pretty much everything. I heard stories from Formello that sounds like jokes but are real. Now, in the last couple of years, he has to give up a lot of his control, and Fabiani is doing that. And I honestly think he's terrible. Of course, he's a yes man. If Lotito says something, Fabiani will do it. But Fabiani is managing a lot of things. And you can see a lot of problems going on that probably under Lotito wouldn't have happened. The Guendouzi situation, the Romagnoli situation, these are all things that Fabiani had to manage. And he's not able to do it. Lotito, that I don't like at all, at least is someone that checks everything. For example, I'm convinced that the summer transfer market that was blocked was because Lotito wasn't there checking everything. He delegated, and that's what happened. Nobody noticed about the issue. For me, Lotito has to make a decision. Or go back and control everything like he did 4 or 5 years ago, or take a manager, a real manager, not a Fabiani, someone really good. We're talking about Marotta level, someone that is able to manage everything. I mean, we don't have a sponsor. This is the 3rd year in a row. The stadium is not going anywhere. Our sponsorships, our merchandising is disastrous. We need someone who's able to manage the financial side of you, the marketing, the team, the sponsorship, the marketing, everything, signing players. We need a team. Fabiani is not able. I mean, last time, I don't know if you see the press conference. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. He said, before Lazio, I was managing Messina. Wow, Messina. No offense. Messina in the last 20 years have been 3 years in Serie A. 3 years. And you say proudly, well, I was Messina as sport director. Whoa, unbelievable. You're managing Lazio. You shouldn't even get close to Lazio. I mean, Fiorentina signed Juventus manager. Roma signed Liverpool manager. We signed Messina. Again, great respect for the city, etc. He has no experience of international football. Never have been a manager of a team playing in Europe. And this is what we're getting. I mean, it's obvious he doesn't know what to do, and he's not even young. You don't say, hey, He's 23. He needs to build experience. He's 62. He should be done.
What do you think of what do you think of the job that Sadi's doing? How much of this falls on him? How much is it just a complete lack of resources and players? It takes a lot of things to go wrong for a club like Lazio to see themselves at 8th, 9th, 10th in the table. So how much responsibility are you putting on Sadi?
Honestly, not that much. I mean, I think the success of a football team is when sport director and manager goes in the same direction. They see it the same way. And again, if Sari asks you, don't sell Guendouzi, and you sell him, that doesn't sound good. And you cannot blame the manager. If the manager asks you, I want a number 9 that has the skills of Raspadori, and you sign Radkov, then what the hell are you doing, right? If he says, I need a left back, and you sign a left wing, you're already creating issue. The other thing is, if you have Sarri, you know what you're getting, right? You cannot pretend to sign Sarri and then play 3-5-2 or play, a different type of football. It's like I have Conte and I don't sign any big player. Conte will quit after 2 days. So if you sign Sarri, you know what he needs, and you have to get those type of players. So it's easy. It's not easy. I believe managers are important, but if Guardiola manages Leeds United, he won't win the Premier League ever. And the same thing is Sarri. He's one of the best managers, but instead of Nosling, you give him Lautaro Martinez. I think he will win a couple of games more, right? So this is the problem.
And also, I think just kind of going back a little bit to your point earlier, Sean. I think with Tade, I think Sadi actually benefits more from players that already come ready, in my opinion. I think we can really get the most out of Sadi as a coach if we're getting players that don't need Sadi to tell them, hey, when you get the ball here, make this turn instead of there. No, it's more so, hey, positionally, I want you to be here when this player goes there, not the little nuances that come from just being a young player and just aging and playing the game over time. I think Sadi benefits a lot from a Guendouzi. He's like, I know what I need to do. Guendouzi knows what he needs to do. It's simply just a tactical point. This now is, okay, I just need to teach you tactically where to position yourself, who to look for. But all the other little smaller parts of the game that young players struggle at the beginning but learn over time, I don't think Sadi has – I don't think he's that type of coach where he'll sit down with a young player and say – and be really detail specific. Hey, receive the ball this way. Maybe open up a little bit here. I think he's much more focused on the tactical side, the collective unit, rather than the individual players. While some coaches, like I think Baroni, might be someone that's a little more individual. Let me talk to you. Let me get to know you better. So with that said, if Fabiani's strategy is to then get young players who need that really intense one-on-one time with coaches for development, I don't think Sadi's going to be the guy for them. And whereas what we were doing before as a club was we would sign players that were cheap, but they were players in the top 5 leagues on the bench somewhere. So maybe struggled for a season in Serie A, maybe struggled elsewhere abroad, and we would bring them into players that are 24, 25, 20, up to 27 years old, and they know the game. They just needed the right coach, the right environment to get the most out of them instead of development. So I also think that and that also all goes back to Lotito and Fabiani choosing Sadi as their coach. If they knew we're going to sign players for a system that's more akin to a 4-2-3-1 with attacking midfielders and younger players, why sign Sadi to begin with, right?
It shows the lack of vision. It's the lack of project,
that's the main issue.
Plan. The same reason why they sign wingers on wingers for Simone Inzaghi, who didn't play with wingers, right? It just shows. And if you are anti-Sadi and you think he's to blame for everything, well, the biggest point is who hired him. And if he doesn't match the players, well, who hired him? That's the problem.
And so, if you say, oh, Sadi doesn't have what he needs to play, well, whose job is that to do?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but one thing, I agree with what Caleb said, but as Gasperini said last week, in January, you need to sign players that are ready.
Yep.
Because youngster, you signed it in summer. You have 1.5 month to train them, play them friendlies so they get ready. And maybe they're not ready for September, but October, they're done. They're ready to start. In January, you can't because you sign them the 3rd, the 5th day Serie A game, and you cannot risk them to play in a Serie A game that can cost you the league or the European qualification. You don't sign youngster in January. And Gasperini said it. And Gasperini is fighting for the Champions League. He should be praising Fredkin and say, thanks God, you're signing players. And he said he's nervous because they signed him only the number 9 that is ready and a lot of youngster. So, you don't sign youngster in the winter because they don't have time to get ready to prepare. So this is another problem. And my biggest concern is that the Polish player, Adrian, will never play this season if we still fight for something in the Serie A. Because, if end of February we out of everything, maybe Sarri will rotate and give him an opportunity. Otherwise, he will stay 4 or 5 months on the bench without even having some playtime, which would be disappointing. But, the manager has to think about himself. I don't want to lose game because I have to try youngster. Because if I lose game, then what happens? Sarri's a disaster. Lazio's losing because of Sarri. Maybe he wants to start Rakov to give him an opportunity, etc. So this is a problem that not a lot of people think about.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's a good place to start wrapping up here. Vittorio, thank you for joining us today. Let folks that maybe aren't familiar with Lazio Lounge and all the great work that you and Alistair do know where to find and listen to you guys.
Well, Alistair probably now is crying after Scotland lost against Italy in the Six Nations, so who knows where he is. But yeah, well, you can find us on Monday. We are doing our weekly podcast in English about Lazio pretty much every Monday.
Well, make sure you subscribe to Lazio Lounge. Check out Vittorio on social media. I know he's on across every platform. So, Vittorio, grazie mille and sempre forza Lazio.